I'm going to begin SQL in 6 by discussing some of the basics of selects. There are a couple of ways to teach SQL Server, and I think the best way to teach anything related to programming is to teach by purpose and function versus here's all the stuff at SQL Server, here's all the different code and stuff that you can run. And instead what we're going to do is solve real-world problems, and as we do that we'll learn new tools that we can use at our disposal. So we'll start simple, get more complicated as time goes on. So the 6 minutes is really just, coding in 6 minutes and solving the problem in 6 minutes, but the actual introducing the problem and such is going to be a lot longer than the 6 minutes. So don't worry about the 6 minutes is just, like I said, the coding and such, actual solving the problem. But as far as the introducing the problem, that'll be a little bit longer in and of itself. So one of the things that I read a couple of years ago was that, or a year ago or so, was that humans tend to exceed their budget by 20%. So whatever we receive as far as a paycheck, let's say it's $1,500 a month, or I'm sorry, $1,500 a week, or every 2 weeks, we tend to go over that amount by 20%. That's just something that humans do. So essentially, I can introduce this in SQL Server immediately. We can do a select like this, I think so. Let me check. Pretty sure. Yeah. We can do a select without any table that it referenced. We can do a numerical select, and we can even do a, for instance, we can do a string select. Let's say 2 plus, this is 2 strings, plus 2, and it will return 2, 2. That is just kind of a basic of select. You can actually solve math problems with it. But obviously, from an application standpoint, if we're building an application, we want to pass data into the database, and then we want the database to return the data, or we want data to be calculated in the database and returned to our application, selects like that aren't going to work. We're actually going to need a table. So that's where we're going to start today. We're going to take the real-world problem of that humans tend to spend 20% more than our income, and we're going to try to build an application that instead of reporting our paychecks, it reports 80% of our paychecks. And that way we defeat our own stupidity here, and I'm including myself in that. So we're going to call our table the Dumb Human Budget Table. And I'm also going to have at the end the drop table command. And this is, it deletes this, so that when I show you guys what I'm doing here, it'll automatically delete whatever I've created. And there is a reason for that. It's so that I can leave on, I don't have to code out my create. And so when we build the table, this is the syntax here. We have create table, and then the table name, and then an open parentheses and a close parentheses. Now if our table held nothing, we would just do that, except that's going to generate an error because there needs to be something in the table. For every column in our table, or we want to name our columns, usually the starting column is an ID field of some type, like Social Security number would be an ID field, or maybe even phone number would be an ID field. In this case, we're going to call, since we're referring to the paycheck, we're going to call it the paycheck ID. And a paycheck ID is going to be an integer, which means it's going to be 1, 2, 3, a whole number. And we're going to make our paycheck ID an identity field. And the identity field is 1, 1. And hold on a second. I'm going to do a test field only because I want to show you what an identity field is. Otherwise, it's going to be confusing. Don't worry about the insert for now. The insert command, we'll get into that later. Let's try that first. 1 second here. I like actually making mistakes in my typing only because it shows people that no one's perfect, and it makes it more realistic. It's one of the reasons why I like the Khan Academy, because the guy's always making mistakes, and it's like, there's a pretty obvious mistake there. Okay, so Okay, good, it worked. But yeah, if you go to a seminar, especially in SQL Server or any of these other things, they'll tell you don't type in a demo because that's the end of the world. That's kind of stupid. But anyway, alright, so now it's selected. Okay, so what our identity field does, as you can see, is we're not inserting anything into our identity field, it's just inserting these values right here into the test field. The identity field starts at 1 and it increments by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the identity is automatically populated. We could, for instance, change this to 5, 5, and hold on. Notice it starts at 5 and it now increments by 5. So that's what, when you see identity 1, 1, that's what it's doing. It's starting at 1 and then it increments each new value by 1. Okay, so we're going to leave the insert there for now, and we're going to call this our paycheck amount. Now we'll just say paycheck, actually. There's no reason to do paycheck amount. And this is going to be a decimal. Now a decimal, of course, total of 7 values, that'd be a large paycheck, but we'll leave it like that. And then we're going to do the dumb human amount. And again, I'm not making fun of anyone else, I'm making fun of myself too, because I'm very, very guilty here of overspending or thinking I have more money than I do. And it's just so tempting to do. Okay. And like I said, don't worry about the insert for now, but typically on an insert syntax, you're inserting it into the table, and then I have a parentheses here, which is saying that I'm only inserting it into this field, but we'll get into that as time goes on. An application is the same way. You may have a text box in an application where a person punches a value in and that text box goes specifically into it. This is what's going on behind the scenes, the back end side of things. So we're going to insert into the dumb human budget paycheck, and so now we're going to put some values. So let's say that one of our paychecks is 1428.23. Let's say that one of our paychecks is 1487.17. Let's say that another one of our paychecks is 1974.56. Maybe the person works in sales. Okay. So this is the basic select operator here. We have selected star, means we are selecting everything from this table. Again, the syntax is the select statement and then from. And this is pretty basic in a sense because we're selecting everything. Let me add a couple more values so that we can start showing some other things what to do. Hold on. Okay, let's do that. Alright, sweet. Now, for our application, let's suppose that our application automatically grabs our paycheck, so it automatically tells us what we got in terms of our paycheck, but in terms of reporting the amount. One second, paycheck. Instead, it reports this amount. In other words, our application is going to report the dumb human amount, not the paycheck amount. So every time a new paycheck comes through, let's suppose it automatically updates our table. And it updates our table, second, that was the wrong button. It updates our table to setting the reported amount, which is going to be the dumb human amount, to the paycheck times 80%. That's what that really is 80%, or 0.8. So now when we look at our table, let's see if it works. Okay, good. This is our paycheck that we actually got, and this is what the application reports because, again, we're not super rational beings. So what our application is really doing then in that case is it's only reporting this. So the back end is reporting this column only. So again, I can do the whole thing. Dumb human amount. That's what we're seeing. We're not seeing the select star. We're only seeing the select this column. So again, one of the things that we can learn here is we can say in our select statement, hold on one second. In our select statement, we can select a column. If we want to select the ID and we want to select the dumb human amount, typically you'll see people do it this way, but hold on one second, let me go back to there. So you have your dumb human amount and you have your ID, so if we select invalid, right. Paycheck ID, I'm sorry. Blam. You know why? Because it didn't get to this point. Okay, there you go. Paycheck ID, and you'll see it comes back with 2 columns. So we can basically a column, comma, another column will report 2 columns. Star reports everything in the budget. I'm sorry, everything in the table. Usually this is the syntax that you'll see, and it makes it easier to organize. Plus, if you want to code something out, I just coded that out. Now I'm just reporting the paycheck ID. It makes it easier to do. If you have it there, it's a little bit harder to do when you have multiple rows. Multiple columns. Okay, so there's our basic select from our dumb human budget. So we are reporting the paycheck ID and the dumb human amount. But for our application, remember, we only want to report just the dumb human amount because we tend to overspend, so we don't actually know the full amount of our paycheck, these values here. We are only seeing these values. Now let's add to our basic select statement here, and let's add a where clause. A where clause is going to specify. We're going to, actually the where clause is, think of it like a filter. You see these 5 values. With our where clause, we want to filter out some of the values. So we want to see where the dumb human amount exceeds $1,000. Is that going to work? Yeah. Now remember, when we did, let me code this out here. When we reported it, we have, what, 5 paychecks, and one of them is below $1,000. When we include our where statement, okay, turn that back, it wipes out the one that's below 1,000. This where filters out amounts. If we wanted to filter out anything that was below 1,500, nope, whoops, that was 1,000. It would only come back with 1 value. So this is what our where clause does. As we do more in SQL Server, as I show you more tools, you'll see that where clauses can filter out words, they can filter out statements, they can do things like between, in. Actually, let me do an in as an example. Paycheck ID, comma, oops. There. So let's do a filter on when. So let's say it's the 2nd paycheck of the month, where paycheck ID in the first, it'll be the 1st paycheck of the month. So 1, 3, 5. The logic I'm getting at here is typically the odd numbers are going to be the 1st paycheck of the month. Not always, but sometimes, most of the time. Okay, and there you go. So notice we filtered out the 2 and the 4. So we did a filter and it eliminated the even numbers and filtered only out the odd numbers. So as you can see, this is kind of a basic select. Granted, as we do more in SQL Server, a lot of this will make more sense. But the key to know here is our creating table, with our table name, our columns, and what they are. We specified them. There's a whole list of things on MSDN of various column types that you can do. And then our select, we can select the column. We can select everything by using star from the table. And then one of our filters here is where, or our filter here is where. Eventually we're going to go over like joins and things like that. But for now, that should cover everything. And if you have questions specifically related to this code, go ahead and post it, and we'll go from there. Thank you.